This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. And this is Solar Flash Update August 1st, 2023. So there is a solar storm that is hitting between August 1st and August 2nd. Where I'm at in Australia, it's August 2nd. But if you're in the USA, I'm recording this in the middle of the night on August 1st, the morning of August 2nd. And so far, I haven't felt anything hit yet, so maybe it's on its way. Humans must choose to jump to 5D Earth. I'm going to talk about more and more evidence is coming my way that, in fact, the Earth is, if it hasn't already, there's multiple versions of Earth depending on what frequency you are vibrating at. And it looks as though humans have to consciously make the choice to vibrate to the new Earth. I'm noticing things showing up in my YouTube feed, ghosts and demons increasing. For some reason, there's some strange thing where people on planes are flipping out and trying to jump out the plane or jumping off the plane before it takes off. And I'm thinking if that's real, it's because the different vibrations of Earth are splitting apart and people are beginning to see into what's underneath. And of course, we still have a lot of talk on mainstream media about UFOs, and I'm here to tell you that everything that they're saying, even if they look like they're trying to force the government to come out and tell the truth about UFOs, it is still a narrative that is going to end up perhaps with a false flag UFO invasion. We'll talk about that. Welcome to the channel. This is thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. And so on this channel, we take action to shift. So if you watch my channel and all you do is watch the videos and you're not doing any of the work that I suggest, unfortunately, you're pretty much wasting your time here. The stuff that I talk about, if it impacts you, if it stimulates you, if it inspires you, I'm doing my job if I get you to take the action to shift up. So if you really do appreciate the things that I'm saying, then you have got to do the work. And if you don't do the work, unfortunately, you won't get the benefit, at least from what I'm teaching. So you can go on to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel page. Somebody, again, just recently asked me where a certain video was. Please, before you ask me where videos are, do just spend 10 seconds going on to the channel page and looking at the playlists. If it's not there, then realize that YouTube has changed things around where there's a tab for videos and then there's another tab for live. So I do a lot of live streams. So if something is missing, make sure you've looked at both the video tab and the live stream tab, and that you've looked at the playlists. And then if you can't find it, then ask me and maybe I can help you out. I have books on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. Go check those out. Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Have Come to Earth. Thanks again to all those who have left reviews. If you've read the books, please write a review. Don't just put 5 stars because nobody sees that. Write a review, an honest review of what you think about what you read. The most valuable gift that I can give you is the Lightning Qigong. You go up here to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior Lightning 90-Day Lightning Qigong, and just simply press play and follow the instructions. It's very simple. And I've even made it more simple because all you have to do is just simply, when you subscribe, you see those boxes down there. It says Lightning Qigong 90 Day. Just click on those and you'll see all the videos that you need. Follow the instructions. Okay, so back to Solar flash update, August 1st, 2023. As I said, a solar storm is on its way. If it, maybe by the time you watch this, the storm will have hit. It's possible it might be hitting because I am feeling a little bit anxious, a little bit uncomfortable. One of the things I've noticed with when these waves of higher dimensional energy are hitting the earth from the sun, what I end up experiencing is it'll just be sort of non-specific anxiety. And what happens is we respond with whatever our self-defense mechanism is. If your self-defense mechanism is to get angry, then you might get angry. If it's to get impatient, if it's to get frightened, if it's to get defensive or to get judgmental or to get self-judgmental, whatever your self-defense, three-dimensional self-defense mechanism is, when these higher vibrations hit, you're going to default back to those lower vibrational 3D impulses and reactions. And that's because this higher dimensional energy is trying to get you out of this particular vibration. And so this particular vibration of 3D responds to animal energy. You live in a universe in the 3D. You live in a world where you have to compete for partners, for sexual partners, for romantic partners. You have to compete for food. You have to compete for resources. You have to compete for money. People judge each other. Things are good and things are bad. People either think they're good or they're bad. They're narcissistic. They're codependent. Everything is black and white. And, you either have to fight it, kill it, eat it, run away from it, placate it, worship it. These are 3D responses to the 3D vibration. This new vibration that's coming in is coming from a place of you are aware that you are in fact divine, and that every other person is also an infinite divine being. So that is very different, and that sounds great, except that when you experience that, you have to drop all of your 3D survival mechanisms, which are going to be negative. Your first thing you're going to have to let go of is your self-doubt, your self-limitation. If you're angry and judgmental at other people, that is a projection of how you feel about yourself. If you judge other people, whatever you judge them for, that's how you judge yourself. And I'm no different than you. I have these judgments go through my head all day, every day, and I have to go, oh, that's interesting. That's how I feel about myself. If somebody bothers me and I don't know why, I'll ask myself, why does that person bother me? And whatever conclusion I come to, I go, oh, so that's how I feel about myself. So learning how to operate on that higher level means truly loving yourself. And as I said, it sounds good on paper, but when you truly love yourself, you have to die to this third dimension. So that's where the fear comes in. This is why people, in our world operate from fear and all that negativity, because they feel safe. It makes them feel like it keeps them alive. So we have to drop that. And that means that when this higher dimensional energy hits, one of the first things that happens is you will have uncomfortable feelings. You'll be anxious, maybe angry, fearful, something like that. So what I do is I just breathe into the anxiety, breathe into the intense feeling. And when I don't respond to it, because the feeling is trying to get you to respond in a negative way that will root you even further. Self-hatred is one of them. People believe that, that they're being humble when they talk garbage about themselves, and you're not being humble. You're beating yourself up so you can stay in 3D and be a part of others. When you tap into your infinity and your divinity, one of the first feelings you may have is you may feel guilty because you're like, I don't want to feel like I'm better than anybody, or you don't want to make anybody else feel bad. So you think if you were to let your divinity shine in the world, other people would feel bad and intimidated, which is probably something that's happened to you in your life. And so in order not to hurt people, you talk negatively about yourself so you can humble yourself. Well, in this new vibration, everybody's going to know that they are a god. Everybody's going to know that they are divine, and they will also love and respect everybody else's divinity. So you won't have a bunch of narcissists running around. You'll have a bunch of people who love themselves and see the beauty in others as well. It'll be a very beautiful time, but we have to die to our 3D, our lower 3D vibration. So if you're experiencing that, it could be because there is some solar radiation hitting the Earth. Bear in mind, again, in case you're not clear on the subject, the solar flash is a word, and I hadn't heard about it, but ETs told me over a year ago. They showed me that something was going to happen that was going to be a worldwide phenomenon that was going to shift the world up into a higher plane of thinking, a higher plane of living. And they didn't tell me exactly what it was. And so I said, what is this event going to be that everybody's going to see? Is it going to be a fleet of spaceships? And they said, no. It's going to be a series of solar waves of love that are going to hit the Earth from the sun and will penetrate into the Earth, and the whole world, plants, animals, and people will shift up to the next level. I've got some more ideas about what that might mean, but in case you're not familiar with what the solar flash is, or what I call the solar wave event, that's what it is. Every time that you hear about these solar storms hitting the Earth because we're going through a solar maximum, so even scientists and NASA are telling you, yes, we're in a solar maximum where the electromagnetic field of the sun is shifting the poles, and it's sending huge solar radiation and solar plasma hitting the Earth, and so we have to be careful, this, that. So we all know this is happening, but what they don't realize is that combined with the lessened electromagnetic field that's surrounding the Earth at this time is creating a situation where we're getting hit with huge amounts of solar radiation, and this solar radiation is nothing short of a consciousness builder. And so you're seeing people are waking up. I'm seeing this. I certainly have had a huge awakening event, for the past couple of decades, but certainly this past year and a half has been monumental, the awakening that I've had. I already thought I was pretty awake, and I was, but we're not there yet. So this solar wave event is hitting the Earth, and you're seeing people waking up in all different areas, and you're seeing all of the lies being exposed. So that's the solar storm hitting Earth right now. I've come to realize that humans must choose to jump to the new 5D Earth. Now, I'm still trying to figure this out. So I'm not here telling you I know for a fact this, that, or the other thing. When I first became aware of this event, my thought, my assumption was that every single person on Earth was going to shift up to a higher octave of understanding. But that might not be the case. It might be the case that perhaps in the next year, 2 years maximum, and I'm okay if none of this happens. I'm not attached to any of this. I'm just looking at what I've been told and what I'm seeing and putting two and two together. And I'm not the only person. This is coming from a lot of other people who are experiencing and seeing this kind of stuff as well. But to begin with, I had to assume that the whole world was going to jump up to the next level. But then you have a problem. When you look around, there's a lot of people, in our world who are pretty horrible, and they're definitely not on a higher wavelength. There's a lot of really nasty things going on, and there's a lot of people that don't want to let go of this way of life. Maybe they're not horrible people, but they don't want to let go of the life where you have to earn your love by being rich or famous or have power, and what we're seeing now, especially with some of the stuff that's coming out about the elite in Hollywood, that, once people get to a certain level of fame and power, they get corrupted very easily. And if they believe that that's what they need to survive, it's going to be very hard to let go of that. you've got billionaire, corporate leaders. If you go to them one day and say, well, so tomorrow we're going to get rid of all the banks and the whole money system is going away and everybody's going to be on equal footing, they're not going to want to let go of that. If you're somebody who just desperately wants people to love you and accept you, that's a very human trait, then the idea of having to be completely self dependent emotionally and psychologically is going to be frightening. It'll feel like death because you've worked so hard to get everybody's love and approval. That's a very, very human thing. I think every human is going through that, including myself. So not everybody's going to want to go to the new earth because they'll have to die to this way of living. And we live in an earth that is based on devaluation. It's based on narcissistic devaluation. Just having to have money to buy a house. And even there's no such thing anymore of people buying houses. Maybe 100 years ago you could buy a house, but even then you had to go to the bank, and the bank would buy the house, and then you would pay a mortgage. You basically rent. You would pay a mortgage plus interest to the bank. And this is still the case today. And this is what this whole housing crisis is, which is completely made up. Corporations are buying up all of the houses and then they're jacking the prices up. And we're hearing about the economy. Well, the economy is run by people because, as you know, money doesn't exist. It's just an idea. It is actually we talk about, we don't want to have the social credit kind of thing that's going on in China. Well, we already have that. It's called a credit score. Your social credit is based on how much money you have, how much money you make, how much debt you have. And so, the truth is that money is a concept. It's not a real thing. And so you're devalued from the moment you enter into that economy and you make decisions based on how much money you have or don't have. So that's going to be tough to let go of. And, when you live in a society where there is no money, there are no banks, I'm basically saying, I got off track, but I was basically saying nobody ever owns a home because even if you pay a mortgage for 15 years on a 30-year mortgage, if after 15 years of paying the principal plus interest, if you stop paying that, you don't get half of the house. You've paid half of the mortgage for half of the time. They're not going to give you half the house. They're not going to pay you a half of the value of the house and then take it from you. They're not even going to give you a quarter of the value of the house and take it from you. They're just going to take the house right from underneath you. It doesn't matter that you can't pay this month, even though you've paid for 15 years up until that month. You see what I mean? You don't own anything. And what happens then? It's very devaluing. It's very sad. People kill themselves over it. They feel worthless. They feel, like they're no good. All over this money thing. We live in a society that devalues you in every way possible. So imagine living in a world where none of that exists. There's no such thing as being devalued. There's no such thing as being more or less than anybody else. There's no such thing as money or banks or governments or anything like that. We live in a world that continuously gives and gives and gives, and everybody has access to the free air of Earth and the free water of Earth and the free plants and, the free Earth itself. And the word Manhattan, as I understand it, for, the Manhattan Island of New York, as I understand it, that word means crazy person. Because the Europeans wanted to buy the island of Manhattan from the local indigenous people and, for money. And the local indigenous people said, sure, you want to pay us for it? Go ahead, Manhattan. Crazy person, because they're walking away with this, paper money. I don't know if they felt it valuable or not, but they walked away from that saying, those people are crazy. They think they can own the earth. They're nuts. So the idea of owning anything is going to go away. But you'll have access to everything you could possibly want. you'll have more than everything you could possibly want and need in this new world. But that's going to mean that we have to die to this understanding, and that's going to be challenging. So we have to choose. So now I'm coming closer to this idea that's been around. At first, if you listen to my videos maybe a year ago, you hear me get very offended at the idea that some people will make it and other people won't. And that was because I was responding to kind of like the notion of, like the rapture, where God will take some and leave others. And some people won't make it because they're not good enough. And then I came to realize, as I got, more and more of this higher dimensional energy into my being, I realized, wow, this is challenging. I have to die to who I think I am. I have to be willing to face my fears. And a lot of people aren't going to want to let go of the safety of this kind of living. So now my belief is that, I don't know yet, but I think it's very possible that this new earth already exists. And let me give you some reasons for that. So I've known for a while that there are beings on this planet who can traverse in and out of our 3D earth. Not just spiritual beings, but physical beings. And there are stories in all different cultures, trolls, fairies, elves. But I personally have interacted with a being known as Sasquatch. I've had one in-person physical interaction, and I came away from that. That was the most frightening experience of my life, next to my first experience with higher dimensional beings. But I was frightened because this being clearly was not part of my earthly dimension. And I felt like if I stayed in the presence of this being, that I would come apart. I felt as though it would kill me. Not physically, but like my body would just... What I didn't realize at the time was that Sasquatch was vibrating at a level that was not on my 3D earth, and I would have shifted into another dimension. Perhaps I would have walked into his reality. There's no shortage of stories of Sasquatch tracks, like in the snow, just a field of snow with no trees, and you'll see these Sasquatch tracks, and they just disappear. It's like right in, 1 minute they're there, the next minute they're gone, as though there was a dimensional doorway that they walked through, because that's exactly what it was. But what's happening is that they themselves have the ability to shift. They shift their vibration. And it's very possible on other vibrational, that they're only big, giant, hairy, ape-like creatures when they're in 3D, but when they shift to whatever dimension is their dimension, they might be light beings. Because same place that you see Sasquatch, you can see orbs and light beings, and they can go back and forth between the two. So I've known that for a long time, and so it makes me think that that's what we're about to experience as human beings. That there is already another Earth. For Sasquatch, I already know there's another vibration of Earth, and they pass back and forth between the two. So I already know that they can live on the same Earth. It might even be the exact same, the exact same physical, attributes, this mountain here, this tree here, might be exactly the same. The only difference is that it's just a higher vibration of the same place. And so I believe that that's what our new Earth might be. But we haven't learned yet, like Sasquatch did. And I believe, as I've said before, Sasquatch is our relative. And it was a being called Gigantopithecus. We know for a fact that there was a bipedal ape on Earth millions of years ago that was 8, 9 feet tall. It was Sasquatch. But something happened to their evolution as human beings were evolving into the beings that we are now. The Sasquatch was evolving into their being, and they had a more spiritual bent. And so they shifted to, probably without even realizing it, they shifted to a higher vibration of Earth than where we are at. And so we are hitting that apex fulcrum where we're going to shift as well. But there might be, who knows how many, there might be a large portion of humans that will choose not to go. And as I said, they'll choose not to go because it'll be, frightening to them. But for those of us that will choose to go, I believe that it will be a conscious choice. You will have to make a choice. You'll either have to choose to go to the new earth or stay in the old one. I don't recommend staying in the old one because it'll be more of the same. It'll just get worse. But I've been listening to other people's experiences, other people's journeys, other people's interactions with higher dimensional beings, and this keeps coming up. It's like a different. Each level of Earth is like a different octave. So there's an octave up. The next level up would be where we're going to go, just like on a piano. Same note, but an octave higher. So it'll look the same. It'll look exactly the same. Maybe there won't be as many buildings, won't be as many people. Who knows? And at some point, we will have to make a decision. I heard somebody talking about, I don't know if it was a dream or a vision or something, where they did a ritual. They lit some candles and they created a ritual space, and they made the definite conscious decision to shift to the new world. And then next thing they knew, everything looked the same, but something was different. Went over and talked to the neighbors. The neighbors were still there. Said, is this different? And the neighbors said, yeah, welcome to the new earth. I heard of another near-death experience, which I found very interesting. And this was somebody who was a born-again Christian. Now, I used to be a born-again Christian, so I know how difficult it is for a born-again Christian to change their beliefs. But because this person had a near-death experience, they died, went to heaven or whatever, they actually found out that what they'd been told about God and spirituality in church was wrong. And that was a big shock to them to find out that, there was no such thing as sin or heaven and hell and all that stuff, that you're taught in religion. But what they realized, they found out that for them, in their near-death experience, they were interacting with, what I would call the quantum field. They called it God. And God was telling this woman about heaven, but heaven wasn't a dimension, it was a planet. And what she saw was she was looking at Earth and she saw a bunch of these flashes all over Earth. And these were souls that were jumping, dimensionally jumping to the new planet, which she called heaven. I'm realizing she was talking about where we are now. And it's not going to be you die and then go to heaven. It's going to be, this is going to happen in our physical bodies. And what I believe will happen is that we will make the decision. Maybe we'll have an experience, maybe we won't, but we'll realize that there's something different about the earth. And there's going to be people who won't choose to come. So that's my latest thought on that. And so that means we really, really need to take responsibility. Don't wait around for the solar flash event. I do believe there will be one. Don't wait for something to happen to you. Take advantage of these waves as they're hitting Earth. Meditate into them and do the work. Do the energy work, do the meditation. I recommend everybody be meditating every single day, whether it's, whatever kind of meditation you do, and be prepared to walk away from this reality. I would recommend that you meditate on the idea of living in a world where there's no banks, where there's no money, where there's no social credit system, where there aren't, some people have more than others. Everybody will be equal but different. There might be people whose life path means that they are, mayors of giant towns, meaning that they, have something to do to help that society work together, like, chiefs, or shaman rulers. There might be somebody who's a priest who has or a priestess who has a responsibility to heal a lot of people. And there might be people whose life path is just to live a simple life with, just their family and just live in nature and enjoy it. I mean, I wouldn't mind just living in a nice little hut on the beach and surfing every day. That would be fine with me. I don't need anything more than that. So there are going to be people that have more responsibility than others, but there won't be anybody who has any more power than anybody else. We're going to live in a world where we all have access to infinity. We all have access to love. There won't be separation. There won't you won't you won't have to go through immigration to go someplace else in the world. You won't have to drive a car. You won't have to pay somebody for electricity. You'll have a device which will pull energy out of the air, which will heat your home and light your home and cook your food and cool your home, heat it, whatever it is. And you'll have access to technology where you can, get in your little Jetsons space bubble and fly anywhere you want in the universe, anywhere you want on the world. And you won't have to pay for gas. You won't have to go through customs. None of that's going to happen. It'll be a world where there won't be any criminals, because the mindset of you don't have enough, you have to steal from somebody, you have to harm somebody else, you have to lie to somebody, cheat somebody. That mindset won't be even available, because that higher octave, the vibration, won't tolerate that kind of thinking. So imagine that world. That's where you're going to choose to go, and just be prepared to let go of the things you might be attached to. People have said things to me like, well, I don't know if I want that to come, because then I know that the people, one person said this, the people I know at work wouldn't want that, and I don't want them to not like me. And so obviously that person wants the approval of people who want to live in a lower vibrational earth more than they want to live in a freer earth. Maybe they don't feel safe in a free earth. Maybe they feel safe where there's a building and a job and a boss and money and banks. Maybe they feel safe that way. Somebody else said, well, what about people who've worked their whole lives to build up a fortune? They're going to have to give all that up. But my answer to that is, how many beds can you sleep in at one time? How many meals can you eat at one time? How many shirts and pants can you wear at one time? I mean, storing a bunch of stuff you can't use it. What about just being able to use what you want when you want it? And as you need it. And another interesting thing that I keep hearing from people who have had experiences with higher dimensional beings, as well as people who have interacted with, ET craft, is that, you could have what looks like a small ET spherical spacecraft, and, it might be 30 feet by 30 feet. You look at it and go, oh, maybe it fits one or two beings in there. But when you go in there and you walk in, you find out it's the size of, a football field. And you look outside and it's little, and you go back in and it's enormous. I've heard stories of on other planets, there are people who have these little huts, these little tiny huts, but when you walk in the door, it turns into this enormous, mansion. Imagine living in a world like that. Then you don't have to worry about owning a bunch of land. You don't have to worry, none of that stuff. This is where we're headed. And this is going to be something we're going to have to choose. So the more I learn about it, I'll share what I've heard. Again, I don't know. I'm learning all of this as we go. Ghosts and demons increase as 3D splits in half. I find this interesting. There's an interesting meme that's happening on YouTube, which is people flipping out on planes. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's, one woman demanded to get off a plane and started yelling and screaming that guy isn't a real person, and I'm not going to sit on the same plane as that guy. And she, they had to stop the plane on the tarmac, and she got off. She wouldn't stay any longer. There's another one of a guy. I believe the plane is in midair, and this guy bolts out of his seat and he starts pointing and flipping out and saying, I don't know what he's saying, but there's something about the guy sitting there that's freaking him out so bad. And then he took off running because he was going to go tell the pilot, and so I guess he got tackled, and people were afraid he was going to open the door. Some other guy opens the door. Another guy in China, the same thing. He's sure that if he stays on the plane that it's going to crash. And now it's possible these people could have been mentally ill. They could have been, on drugs. I don't know. But it's also an interesting thought that if this world is in fact shifting and splitting into two, as we've talked about before, if this world might be splitting into two different Earths, a higher dimensional Earth and a lower dimensional Earth, then imagine how frightening it would be if you start to feel that. And I imagine people will start to see through the veil, and maybe they see stuff that you wouldn't normally see. All of a sudden you can see into other dimensions, into lower dimensions, because as I understand it, we have an Earth right here that's sort of like an anchor. There's a higher vibrational one and a lower vibrational one. And so this one that we're on, which is in the middle, where, we live in a world where there are demons and ghosts, and those are two-dimensional beings, lower dimensional beings that make their way into our 3D reality. And then there's higher dimensions where only what we would call angels or higher dimensional beings live. But it's they both come. Higher dimensions and lower dimensions can come and interact here in our Earth. But what if that Earth that we're on disintegrated? Then there would only be the two left, lower dimensional and higher dimensional. So imagine if you're somebody that hasn't awakened to your higher dimensional self, and you start seeing things shifting into a different state. You start to see lower dimensional beings, ghosts and demons. I'm not saying this is happening. I find it an interesting possibility. And then fake UFO invasion coming soon. So I've made videos about this, and I can't talk about it too much because it gets too spicy for YouTube. But everything so far that you've heard on the mainstream news that is coming from the UFO hearings is definitely not the truth. It's setting you up to be afraid of extraterrestrials. It's setting you up to believe that extraterrestrials are a threat to our military airspace and a threat to you. More and more people are having experiences where supposed aliens are landing in their backyard and climbing across their roof and frightening them, especially if you hear about ETs that are naked, giant naked aliens walking around. This is actually, this is the experience of those people is real, but what they're seeing is fake. And it's designed to frighten you so that if somebody wanted to, they could pretend to be aliens and get you to give away more of your power and your freedom in the hopes of being protected from these evil aliens that are coming to Earth. A lot of people in this congressional hearings think that aliens are demons, aliens are unsafe, and that's what you're being told, which of course is a lie. So be prepared. This may get worse before it gets better, and there might actually be a false flag operation before it's all said and done. So the real question that I have is the door open for us to go to that higher dimensional space now? Is it, and can we just make the decision? So the way I understood how this is done is the same way that I teach you how to manifest. So you could do any of the guided interdimensional meditations or the meditations on the thunderwizard.com. You could, it's still the same process. The life that I live now was something that I decided. I listened to myself and I asked myself what I wanted. And I imagined my perfect home in the perfect location. And I have that. And I'm living that right now. But it wasn't something I had the money or could afford to do. Life was definitely not working in my favor. But I didn't care. I said, this is the life I'm going to have. And I commit to manifesting that. And it's going to happen. And as long as I keep listening to my soul and acting on my soul, that reality has to manifest because it's my deepest desire. Well, now we take that same strategy, but we imagine a completely perfect world, not just a perfect home and a perfect location on a very imperfect, frightening planet, but a perfect world. So start thinking about that. I've already told you mine. There's no banks, there's no governments, there's no armies. You're not paying money for anything. You don't need petroleum. You don't need electricity. You don't need coal, gas. You are able, anything you can imagine, you're able to either, there's technology that you can use consciously or you can manifest it yourself. People love each other. They support each other. We see all other beings in the cosmos as our family. There's no enemies. I'm already creating my perfect home. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be playing drums there. I'm going to be leading meditations and doing my energy work. I've even, come up with the perfect idea for, my version of a family. I've already created all of that. But now I just have to ingest the idea that, this is in a completely different planet. That heaven planet that person who had the NDE talked about. Heaven to her wasn't someplace you went after you died. It was someplace you chose to go while you're on this planet, and you jumped. Your energy jumped from one planet to another. And so that's just something to meditate about. I will talk more about it as time goes on. I'll keep meditating on it. Anything I figure out, I'll let you know. If I figure out how to jump to the next planet and I'm able to come back, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. But getting myself prepared for that jump, that's my next goal, and I invite you to do the same. Worst case scenario, all that you've learned how to do is manifest a better life. So I don't see any harm in meditating on the idea of shifting to a higher dimensional planet, a different planet. And if you've been following my videos, we've already moved. Our original Earth before 2012 was on the complete other side of the galaxy. And now it's moved, 70,000 light years. It's in a completely different part of the galaxy than it was in, before 2012. So if that can happen, we can shift onto another, higher dimensional Earth. Anyway, that's it for the Solar Flash this time. Again, if you're serious about wanting to make the shift, you're going to have to change and shift the energy within you. The way that's done is by doing the exercises. There's free exercises on the thunderwizard.com channel page. Just hit the playlists and you'll see them. If you're dead serious about, a clear path and you want me to teach you from A to B to C, go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Press play and just follow the directions. Courses.thunderwizard.com, all of the other services and all of the other courses. And of course, my books, which you can find on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. You see my name right there on Interdimensional Revolution, Michael William Denny. You can go look for me there on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. The 3 books I recommend are Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, and The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Those 3 books are must-reads. It's inexpensive, and you can either listen to me read it to you, or you can read it yourself digitally, or you can get a physical copy. It doesn't matter. I recommend them. That's it for me, my friends. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to me babble. I look forward to seeing you next time, and hopefully I'll have more information about what's coming in this solar wave event that we're in the middle of. And if I have any new understandings, I'll certainly share them with you. Thank you. I love you. See you soon.